So how do we go about it? We start with strategic planning. So strategic planning means what? Planning means deciding what needs to be done in the future. Meaning planning is always with respect to the future, right? So here we are saying it just you are trying to focus and finalize as to what you want to do in the future. And in the process, you're also deciding what actions you need to take at different points in time in order to achieve that outcome which you're looking at or that objective which you're looking at. So good planning is obviously one of the most important parts of good management. And basically it says, it figures out today where are we and tomorrow where do we want to go to, right? Always planning is with respect to that. So think of yourself, you are planning to go to, say, from Bombay to Delhi. So you will have to plan, isn't it? You can't just pick up any bus and just go. You will have to plan as to when you want to reach Delhi, how you want to reach Delhi, right? And what is the method you are going to follow, and then only the implementation starts. So there are two levels in case of management as far as strategic planning is concerned. One is strategic, or the other could be operational planning also. So planning can be of two varieties where management is concerned. One is strategic planning, the other is operational planning. What we mean by this is, here we have to specify the details on how the resources are to be utilized efficiently for attainment of the objectives. So we need to understand further about strategic planning, right? So they're saying that it is a process of determining the objectives of the firm. First you have to know your goal. Then you have to see what resources you need to attain those goals or objectives. And finally, you will have to think about what sort of policies you need for governing the acquisition. Suppose you don't have the resources, then you have to acquire further resources. How do you use those resources, and then how do you dispose of the resources in order to achieve your goal? So ultimately it's all goal oriented or objective oriented. So this process is organization wide. It could be for the entire organization, it could be function based, depends on what you're planning to do. Ultimately you have to remember that planning is always in the future, right? So when you're talking about the future, is the future certain? Absolutely not. So they are saying you are dealing with uncertainty, which is a key construct in strategy formulation. Key construct meaning it is the basic point that you need to remember when you are dealing with strategy, that you are talking about the future. Future is uncertain, therefore you are dealing with uncertainty all the time. So you are going to be thinking about some trend that is likely to happen in the future, which is definitely unpredictable because you can never say. And because you're talking about the future and the possibility of some things happening, there could be certain scenarios that may arise. So if a scenario arises, then you have to analyze the different kinds of scenarios that could happen. And then based on that, you have to think of what sort of strategy you will have if scenario A happens or scenario B happens. Scenario meaning some likelihood of some event happening. It could be event A or event B. That is what we are trying to say. So the impact of uncertainty is basically it involves potential trends or events which will have an impact. It will have an impact where? It will have an impact on the present. That means tomorrow some trend is going to come. Therefore, you need to think about how the present should change in order to take care of that event in the future. It also involves proposed events and even potential businesses. That is, tomorrow what kind of businesses you can have. You think about it in a very simple way. Okay, we have this current trend towards everything moving towards technology, right? So we have even houses which is becoming smart homes, correct? So what does that imply for the people who are building homes? Doesn't it impact the way they think about it in the present? And doesn't it impact the way they are going to think about it in the future? How are they going to work in the future? Are they going to look at smart home construction, or are they going to be at a different level altogether? So all kinds of decisions will have to be made depending on which way you want your real estate business to move. That is what we are trying to say over here. Now, the next point that you need to think about, then planning you are doing, based on planning you will take some decisions. Correct? So, strategic decision making basically is a managerial process of what? You're selecting the action which you think is the most appropriate for accomplishing your organizational goals based on several alternative courses that are there with you. Again, it could be on the operational level or it could be at the strategic level. Strategic is more at the top management and operation is more at the middle and I would say more at the lower management level. So what are your dimensions for strategic decision making? First of all, whenever you're talking strategy, you have to involve the top management. Second thing that you need to remember is you have to be ready for putting in organizational resources. Without that, how will you do any work, right? So, how are you going to commit those resources for different purposes? It is also, since it is the top management, you have to think about how the external environment is going to impact your decisions. The significant impact on the long-term prosperity of the firm is likely to happen because of your decisions. So you need to think about that also. Basically, it is future-oriented and it's a major multifunctional or multi-business consequence, meaning it cuts across different functions, it cuts across the various other businesses also that you may have. So what is strategic intent then? That's the third point which we had said right in the beginning, right? Basically, you have to decide what you want to do, correct? In any organization, the organization has to decide what the organization is striving for, what is your objective. So, senior managers always have to define what they want to do and why they want to do. So, the why of it, what they want to do becomes your objective, why they want to do becomes a strategic intent of the firm. So it provides a framework for the firm within which you will work. It will adopt some predetermined direction and it would operate to achieve certain objectives. Ultimately, we are looking at objectives. So what are your elements of strategic intent? One is vision. There are quite a few. So vision, business definition, business model, goals and objectives. This is what we are going to look at. Now the further part of the chapter is actually based on this only. So we looked at this. First is what is vision. Vision means basically where you want the company to be in the future. So it's a blueprint of the company's future position. Alright. So what is mission? Mission is, it tells you what are the ways in which you can reach that goal. Correct? Then you come to business definition. Business definition means business undertaken by the firm. Why is a business undertaken by the firm? Basically, would you say it is only because you want to do it? Obviously not, right? There is some need in the market which you are trying to fulfill. So basically it is with respect to customer needs. It targets some markets and it also, you have to keep in mind the alternative technologies for the same. Then there is something called a business model. You have to think about the strategy for effective operation of the business. Also, the goals and objectives. The goals and objectives is basically, there is a small kind of difference between goals and objectives. You can consider it a difference. Goals means the final end result. What is objectives? It is based on time measurable targets. So you could say there are small breakup. The big goal you can break up into small sets of objectives which is measured over time. That by let's say in your exam itself, how do you breach your exam? You always say, right, that you will be working towards a final exam in June. Now, let's say you're starting in January. Then you start by thinking, what is your goal? Your goal is your passing the final exam. Now the question is, how will you reach your goal? You will not think about the entire goal together. You will break it up into the number of subjects. Then each subject you will say, okay, this subject I'll finish by January end. this subject I'll finish by February end. So what have you done effectively? You have created a time measurable target. That is your objective. So we come to the next aspect. That is your vision, mission and objectives. So what is vision? Vision means your deciding where you want the company or the entity to be. And you are also deciding which path you want to take for that. That is, there is a certain model which you are going to be thinking about. So it all works together. It's a roadmap for the company's future. So what are the elements that go into it? The elements that go into it, you will create a mission statement. You will use the mission statement to decide the long-term course, and you will ensure that this is communicated across the entire entity so that everybody is aware about it. Also, you will make it in a clear way, and you will give it in an exciting way so that everybody is one with that thought as to what is the vision of the company. Think about Disney's vision. Disneyland, you know, right? So this Disney has got a vision. What does it say? It says to make people happy. So by just that one word, they have communicated everything and they make it very exciting, right? There are lots of vision statements given to you in your module, which also you can go through. Essentials of strategic vision is think creatively about how to prepare a company for the future. So it is not just about setting objectives which are impossible. You are going to be thinking about how are you going to prepare this company for the future. It is basically intelligent entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is just like you are a proprietor, right? So you would want to think how well you can develop this proprietorship concept. So same way, this is intelligent entrepreneurship. It creates enthusiasm. Given an exciting thought like this, you will get enthusiastic, isn't it? And it clearly shows you which direction the company should be, or the strategy is to move towards a particular direction. That's vision. So unless you have a goal in mind, you cannot proceed. Correct? So the next question. Next question is about your mission. Mission is what business are we in and what do we do? Why to have this business? All of that is being specified in the why we are in this particular business and how do we move towards a vision. So vision is your basic goal point, right? So the mission tells you how you will reach, correct? So why should we have such a mission? Because everybody should work together to achieve the objectives. So you are ensuring a unanimity of purpose within the organization. Second thing that you will remember is you are developing a basis by which you will know which resource you have to give at what time to whom so that the goal is achieved. You are motivating the use of those resources also. Generally, you are setting the tone of the business of the organization itself so that everybody moves in that particular direction. Those who are identifying with the organization's purpose and direction can definitely join up with that organization because they are clear where the organization is trying to go, and it will ensure that goals are reached. It will do it in such a way that cost, time and performance, all the parameters for performance can be assessed. Now, how do you make a mission? That will be your next point. So mission, how do you do? While writing, what do you keep in mind? You have to give the organization a special identity. Like how Disney has given. You have a look at the mission of Disney. It's very interesting. Or how Google has given. I've taken that as an example here. And it says, Google says to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So just think about it. Immediately you can identify with this what Google is saying. Are they moving towards it? Definitely. And the business therefore is defined by what it needs to try to satisfy. Some user needs it is trying to satisfy, and that is where it is moving. It has to be unique, obviously, otherwise there is no fun in it, right? Everybody has the same mission, there is no fun in it. You should think about what you as a business or your company as a business is trying to achieve and how it is different from others. That's when the correlation comes between you and the target audience. That's when the target audience will become more interested in you. Now, what are the basic questions that you have to ask in a business? What is our mission? What is our purpose? What kind of growth we are looking at? And who's the target audience? Why this business? All sorts of this kind of questions. There's a huge list. I've only taken some of the questions. You can go through the rest. It's very easy to understand. Basically, you're trying to ask why this business and where you're trying to reach. What is the purpose or what is the human need that you're trying to address. It is, what is mission? But okay, going back to basics, right? Basically, you're saying that mission expresses what the vision has already envisaged. Vision has given you a painting. Let's say there is a rainbow which you are trying to reach, right? So the mission tells you how to reach that rainbow. So that vision which you are trying to achieve, that process the mission tells you. And every organization, you must remember, will have lots of goals and objectives. So in every organization, there is a network of goals and objectives. Mission helps to accomplish all of these goals and objectives. Now, you have to understand mission and purpose. Basically, it defines the role an organization plays in the society, because we are trying to meet some customer need. It is satisfying a particular need in society. It's a statement which defines that role which the organization is trying to play in the society. We'll come to the next aspect. We have already talked about vision, we have talked about mission, now we'll talk about goals and objectives. So goals and objectives is, objectives are more specific than goals. Are they really different? We have seen what is a slight difference between the two. However, we'll be talking about it interchangeably. We can say goals, we can say objectives, both mean the same thing effectively for the purpose of this text. Basically, it tells you what is your final performance target. What do you mean? What is that final thing which you are trying to achieve? Okay, so the pursuit of objective gives meaning and sense of direction to organization. Now, let's say, take yourself as an example. Suppose I tell you, just study strategic management. No, it is good for you. Would you study it? The answer is most likely the answer will be no. Because there is no purpose, according to you, in studying that at this point in time. However, the same person, I say, okay, there is an exam coming up in May and you need to study this as part of the syllabus. Won't you definitely study it? So, you have an objective of clearing the exam and you need to move towards that objective. It gives you meaning, it gives you a sense of direction, it gives you a timeline within which you have to do it. And it also acts as a benchmark. Benchmark means as a standard that you need to achieve. So what are the characteristics of goals or objectives? Basically, it defines how the organization is related with the environment. It tells you how you're going to achieve your mission and purpose. It is a basis for strategic decision making. It provides standards for performance appraisal, because unless you have a standard, you will not try to reach it, isn't it? So, if you say it has to be perfect, it has to be perfect. So, let's say in a gym scenario, gymnastics, okay, I didn't mean the gym where you exercise, I'm saying gymnastics. If you go, what are they trying to achieve whenever they do any of those operations which they do? Basically, they are saying we want to achieve a score of perfect 10, isn't it? 10 on 10. So, what is the standard they are trying to achieve? 10. And therefore, whenever your performance is assessed, it is assessed against that standard of 10. Similarly, for you in an exam, your maximum bar is what? 100. So, you are trying to achieve that 100 all the time. Correct? So, that's your bar which you are trying to break. Now, it has to be concrete, it has to be specific, and it has to be within a time frame. If you say, okay, I'll achieve this at some point in time in life. Will you ever move towards it and fast? Absolutely not, isn't it? It should be challenging. So if you can achieve definitely within 6 months, I should give you only 5 months. Otherwise, there is no fun in achieving it, no? So there is a challenge when you are doing this. So different objectives also correlate to each other. That's one thing you need to remember. And it is set. Now, it is the organizational resources are limited. Now, I want to achieve 1,000 crore turnover. Can I achieve it in this organization? Maybe yes. But there is a limitation. What is the limitation? Limitation of man, money, machines. Remember? So all this what you have studied in economics. So all of that will be your resources which you need for running this organization. So can you meet that objective? It depends upon how much resource you are having. Now, you must remember that you cannot just have one long-term goal and sit with it. Right. So business has to achieve 1,000 crore, I say. Will that help you? Not really. You can say instead that within 1 year, I will reach from 100 crores, I will reach 250 crores. Within 2 years, I will reach maybe 350 crores. So this 1,000 crore turnover definitely I have as an objective. But it's a long-term objective. Maybe 5 years down the line, I should be able to meet it. So your progress will depend also on short-term objectives that you're trying to keep. And the short-term objectives is working towards the long-term objectives. So long-term objectives can be in certain areas. Typically, it is in the area of profitability or productivity. Like I told you about profitability, because ultimately when you're talking about turnover, it ends up in profitability. Another thing that you will talk about is in terms of productivity. I want to utilize my capacity fully, right? The third one is competitive position in terms of market share. I should be number one. I should have 85% market share, correct? Then fourth will be in terms of employee development. I should have the best set of employees and they should not leave me. And the employee relation should be always maintained. There should not be a strike every second day. Correct. Then there's a technological leadership. Technological leadership as in, I want to utilize the technology in the best possible way to achieve my objectives. So in terms of technology also, I am not using redundant technology. And then last one is public responsibility. I should be part of this whole society. So as a company, I should not be creating problems for the society. There should be a responsibility towards the general public also. So obviously when we are talking about objectives, it has to be quantitative. Even, I don't know whether you all are aware, even ethics, they are doing accounting of ethics or social accounting of ethics. Otherwise, how do you measure, no? So it has to be quantitative, it has to be measurable, it has to be realistic. You can't give some impossible targets. Then it has to be something which you can understand, and then it has to be at the same time challenging. Realistic doesn't mean you keep it in a very, very long term period. It should be such that it's achievable, but within only if you push yourself, right? So short term, short range objectives act as a step towards a long range objectives. This I already talked about. So then we should have a model, correct, for strategic management, which has to be dynamic and continuous. What do you mean by dynamic? Dynamic means you will change the model as the situation around you changes. And continuous means it's not like I made a model today and tomorrow I don't require a model. Correct. So, what do you mean that changes have to be part of the whole game? Change in one part of the model will necessitate change in another. Also, think about changes in the environment, like if there is a change in the law. So wouldn't you need to change your model to suit the change in law? So this is what we mean by changes or dynamic, right? So strategy formulation, strategy implementation and evaluation. So first you will formulate the strategy, then you will implement your strategy, and then you will check whether it is working or not. That has to be a continuous basis. How can you have it only once a year or once in 6 months? It won't work. So now what we are saying is, the example is of a model in a module has been given, you can go through that. That will help you to understand. Basically, what does it do? It starts with a vision. Then you have a mission. At the time of the mission, you have to also check what is the status of the environment and that is outside and inside, what we call a SWOT analysis, which you have done, right? So, this SWOT analysis you have to do. Then you have to select the strategies. Then you implement the strategies, and finally you check whether it is working or not and whether there is adequate control. Do you have a fixed method? Not really. That's why you find that in some companies it works well, some companies it does not work well. There is no fixed method. It varies, and it could be also at different hierarchies in the organization, meaning at the top management it will be different, the middle management will be different, right? Also, you must remember, most important one is communication. Communication from the person who's making the strategy, typically the top management, to the people lower down the level, and the feedback from the lower down of the management to the top level is both of them. This communication line is essential. Otherwise, your strategy is not going to work.